27 people have drowned in the Great Lakes, 11 on Lake Michigan alone. 5 of those were just this month.
It is just the second day of summer, and it has already been a deadly season on Lake Michigan.
Drowning deaths on Lake Michigan have increased by 80%.
What if Michigan was more than lakes and forests? What if it was hiding secrets science still can't crack? A triangle that swallows planes without a trace. A beach that sings like it's haunted by heartbreak.
If a storm is coming across the big lake, there's really nothing to stop that energy from building up.
A buried child who may have screamed her way into legend, and copper mines that fed empires but left no trail. From ghost lights that defy logic to dunes shaped by grief, Michigan's mysteries aren't just chilling, they're disturbingly real. Ready to question everything you thought you knew? Watch closely. The Lake Michigan Triangle. Ever heard of a place where ships vanish, planes disappear, and bodies are never found?
Radio's air control and says, I'd like to drop down to 2,500 feet, essentially come under the storm.
No, not the Bermuda Triangle. This is the legend of the Lake Michigan Triangle. Forget any official map. This triangle is drawn in whispers and worry. Its points connect the towns of Ludington, Benton Harbor, and Manitowoc, Wisconsin, enclosing a vast, deep stretch of freshwater with a haunting reputation. It is a freshwater Bermuda Triangle, where the ordinary rules of travel and physics seem to be silently suspended. The legend is built on stories that begin normally and end in utter silence. Consider the case of the Rosabelle. In the autumn of 1921, this schooner set sail from Milwaukee with her crew aboard.
On October 30th, 1921, the ship is going out the next day.
The lake was calm. The destination, Chicago, was routine. Then the vessel vanished. Days later, it was found floating upside down near South Haven. The ship itself was largely intact, repairable even, but the crew was gone. Every single soul. The ship's lifeboats remained aboard. No bodies were ever recovered. It was as if the 11 people on board were plucked from the deck, leaving their vessel to drift, a hollow shell. What force could achieve that without a struggle?
The weather clearly played a huge part and was really the reason those ships sank.
Then, the sky added its own mystery. On a stormy June night in 1950, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501, a DC-4 airliner with 58 people, was cruising over the lake. The pilot reported rough weather near Benton Harbor, dead center in the triangle. And then, radio silence. Nothing. A massive search swept the area. The Coast Guard, the Air Force, civilian boats all found nothing. No significant wreckage. No bodies. To this day, the lake has not yielded the main fuselage of the plane. Researchers have searched for decades using advanced sonar technology.
I was on board this vessel when it went down, so let's have a moment of silence.
In recent years, potential debris sites have been identified, but none have been conclusively confirmed as the aircraft. It remains one of the greatest unsolved aviation mysteries in American history, a ghost flight that never reached the shore. Perhaps most chilling are the stories of the ships found too intact, like the schooner Thomas Hume, which vanished in 1891 with all 7 crew during a simple timber hauling trip. It was gone for over a century. Then, in 2006, divers found it. The ship was sitting upright on the bottom, its masts still standing, its hull perfectly preserved. It showed no signs of a collision or explosion. It simply sank, as if gently lowered, its crew's fate still a secret. So, what causes these mysteries? Science offers clues, but no final verdict. Lake Michigan is a sleeping giant with a terrible temper. Sudden catastrophic squalls called white hurricanes can explode without warning, capable of swamping a ship in minutes. The lake bed is a shifting graveyard of sand dunes that can bury and reveal wrecks over decades. The water is treacherously deep, with cold, preservative darkness that hides secrets well. And of course, human error or mechanical failure is always a factor. Yet, even when all these explanations are laid out, a lingering question remains. Why here? Why this concentration of strange vanishings and eerie finds? The logical answers explain how a ship could sink, but they don't always explain the complete and utter silence that follows. The Dogman legend. Imagine you're deep in Michigan's North Woods, where the silence is broken only by the rustle of leaves. Suddenly, your dog freezes, a low growl rumbling in its throat. You follow its gaze to the tree line and see it, a figure, 7 feet tall, standing upright on 2 legs.
It's one of those cryptids, creatures that thrive in local legend but have never been proven to exist.
But its head is that of a wolf, with intelligent, glowing eyes that lock onto yours. This is no campfire story for many who claim to have witnessed the Michigan Dogman. Reports are not just fleeting shadows. Witnesses in Oceana County have described nights of terror, hearing something massive walking and scratching on her roof, an experience that left her normally quiet dog shaking with fear. Later, while camping in her own yard, she and a friend saw a towering canine shape moving in the darkness, followed by a bone-chilling snarl that sounded like nothing in the natural world. The legend whispers that this creature emerges every 10 years, on years ending in 7. But where did this cycle come from? The answer plunges us into one of Michigan's most successful modern mysteries. The story truly took hold in 1987, when Traverse City Radio DJ Steve Cook played a song for April Fool's Day. Titled The Legend, it was a detailed folk-style ballad chronicling terrifying Dogman encounters throughout Michigan's history, from lumberjacks in 1887 to a sheriff finding horses dead from fright in 1917. Cook later admitted he made it all up, but something unexpected happened. The phones lit up. Listeners called in, not to laugh, but to share their own similar stories. A fictional prank had tapped into a deep vein of existing fear and folklore, giving it a name and a calendar. This solidified the Dogman's image, a muscular, wolf-headed humanoid that walks upright, often reported in the remote forests of the northwestern Lower Peninsula. While the 10-year cycle might be a cultural artifact from a radio show, the sightings themselves are persistent. They predate the song, with odd reports sprinkled through the 20th century and continue to this day, leaving witnesses baffled and terrified.
He just tried to chew in around the doors.
So, what stalks the woods of Michigan? Skeptics point to misidentified bears or large canines seen in poor light. Others suggest mass hysteria fueled by a catchy song. But the sightings predate the song by decades, and witnesses describe identical details. 7 feet tall, wolf-headed, walking upright. The Dogman endures in that uncomfortable space. Michigan's ancient library of stone. There is a library in Michigan where the books have no pages, and the words are never spoken. Its stories are carved directly into the earth, written in a language of symbols waiting to be understood. This is Ejibi Gadek Asen, written on stone in the Anishinaabe language, a place now known as the Sanilac petroglyphs. Hidden in the Thumb region, this is Michigan's largest known gallery of Native American rock carvings. On a 1,000-square-foot slab of sandstone, roughly 165 ancient symbols whisper from the past. Human figures, animals, and powerful spirit beings are etched into the rock, not as random art, but as a deliberate, sacred message. To stand before this outcrop is to stand before a door to another time, left slightly ajar. The carvings speak of visual language. One prominent figure is Ebmodakoet, often called the Bone Man, or the Archer. He is frozen mid-action, having just released an arrow. Elders and interpreters suggest this is not a weapon for hunting, but an arrow of knowledge shot deliberately across the centuries to guide future generations. Another, Migizi Anini, or the Eagle Man, gazes perpetually toward the east, the direction of new beginnings and understanding. These are not mere drawings. They are teachers, frozen in stone. For generations, this library was sealed shut, its stories concealed by soil and forest. The key that unlocked it was a catastrophe. In 1881, the Great Thumb Fire, a devastating blaze that consumed 1 million acres, roared through the region. As the flames receded and the smoke cleared, they revealed a secret. The inferno had stripped the land bare, exposing the carved sandstone for the first time in living memory. The earth guarded its secret until fire forced it to surrender. The carvings are ancient, estimated to be between 300 and 1,400 years old, created by the ancestors of the Great Lakes tribes.
What could these possibly be?
One of the stones appears also to have a carving on it of a mastodon.
This wide range exists because dating rock carvings is imprecise, relying on weathering analysis and comparison to similar sites across the Great Lakes region. This was likely a vital gathering place for ceremonies, for resolving conflicts between groups, and for instructing the young in history, spirituality, and their place in the world.
Some dub it America's underwater Stonehenge. But who put these stones here and why?
Today, the greatest danger to these stone whispers is no longer fire, but time and carelessness. The soft sandstone erodes with each rain and winter freeze. Human vandalism has caused severe damage. Graffiti scratched across ancient figures, footprints worn into symbols, and sections chiseled away as souvenirs. Each act permanently erases a word from a story we are still trying to read. A new chapter of hope is now being written. The site is co-managed by the state of Michigan and the Saginaw Chippewa Indian tribe. This partnership ensures the petroglyphs are not just protected as artifacts, but honored as a living sanctuary. Traditional ceremonies have returned, reconnecting the wisdom in the stone with the community whose ancestors placed it there. The full meaning of every symbol may remain a mystery, but the truth is clear. This is a library. The books are made of stone and the stories are told in pictures. It is a permanent reminder of knowledge, legacy, and a deep connection to this land. A connection that endures silently and powerfully, set in stone. The Ada Witch.
You're not brave enough, but you're here, Andy, with the tale of the Ada Witch.
Folks living in Ada.
In the quiet town of Ada, Michigan, where modern life hums along the Grand River, there is a patch of ground where the past refuses to stay buried. Findlay Cemetery holds a story not of peaceful rest, but of betrayal, violence, and a ghostly rage that has chilled visitors for generations.
Of the Ada Witch.
This is the legend of the Ada Witch, a tale far older and more rooted in local soil than any modern horror film. By day, the cemetery is a tranquil, historic place. But as dusk settles and shadows stretch long between the headstones, an older atmosphere takes hold. It's said that a presence lingers here, a woman cloaked not in black, but in a tattered white dress, forever bound to the scene of her brutal end. Her story begins not with witchcraft, but with a deadly secret. In the late 1800s, in the dense woods that once bordered this land, a local woman met her lover. Their clandestine affair was a dangerous gamble in a small, tightly knit community. One evening, her husband discovered them. What followed was not a quiet confrontation, but a violent, frantic struggle under the canopy of trees. When it was over, the wife lay dead, murdered by a husband consumed with fury. Her life ended not in a bed, but in the dirt, a secret meant to be hidden forever. But some secrets will not stay hidden. Soon after the burial in Findlay Cemetery, the stories began. Townsfolk walking near the woods at twilight reported a figure drifting between the trees, a woman in white, her form shimmering and faint. She was not a peaceful spirit. Visitors to the cemetery began experiencing phenomena that raised the hair on their necks. Strange bluish-green mists would coil from the ground on windless nights, and soft orbs of light were seen floating among the graves. The sounds, however, are what truly define the haunting. People have reported clear, unmistakable audio traces of that long-ago crime echoing through the quiet. The sound of frantic footsteps, running or stumbling through dry leaves. The heart-wrenching sound of a woman's weeping, which can suddenly twist into a piercing, agonized shriek. Most chilling of all are the auditory ghosts of the struggle itself.
This isn't true, and historical records from the area show nothing to match this ghostly origin story.
The grunts of a fight, the thrashing of bodies in the underbrush, a final, terrible silence. Some who have dared to seek her out claim more direct contact. They speak of a sudden icy drop in temperature, a cold spot that moves. Others report the visceral, terrifying feeling of an unseen hand brushing against an arm or shoulder, a touch from the grave. In Ada's Findlay Cemetery, the past refuses to rest, replaying its violent tragedy for anyone willing to listen. The buried terror of Little Mary. In the summer of 1892, 7-year-old Mary McNaughton was buried in Jackson, Michigan's Hillcrest Cemetery.
To this extreme, I've seen some abandoned cemeteries along this path and just planted. It's unbelievable.
The funeral was over. The family was grieving. But that night, Mary's mother, Elizabeth, woke screaming from a nightmare. She was certain, with desperate, unshakable conviction, that her daughter had been buried alive. Tormented by this vision, Elizabeth begged for the unthinkable, to dig up Mary's coffin and open it. To everyone else, it was a grief-stricken delusion. To give her peace, the family finally consented. What they found inside confirmed Elizabeth's worst fear. Mary's face was twisted in a silent scream. Her small hands were bloody and torn, evidence of a child who had woken in the dark, trapped, and fought with all her strength to escape. The McNaughtons were Jackson's elite. Mary's grandfather Moses was a doctor, mayor, and outspoken abolitionist. The family plot was a testament to their prominence. In the summer of 1892, 7-year-old Mary, her mother, and sisters fled Jackson to escape a raging outbreak of typhoid and diphtheria. But tragedy followed them. In the town of Brighton, Mary fell ill. Her appendix ruptured, and on July 18th, the little girl was pronounced dead. Grief-stricken, the family brought her body back to Jackson and laid her to rest in the grand family plot. The service was over. The earth was filled, but the story was not. That very night, Mary's mother, Elizabeth, awoke screaming from a horrifying dream. She was certain with a desperate, unshakable conviction that a terrible mistake had been made. She believed her daughter had been buried alive. Tormented by this vision, she begged for the unthinkable, to have Mary's coffin dug up and opened. To everyone else, it was a grief-stricken delusion. To give her peace, the family finally consented. At the gravesite, workers lifted the freshly buried coffin. The lid was removed. What they saw inside was a frozen tableau of horror that confirmed Elizabeth's darkest dread. There, in the rigid stillness of rigor mortis, was little Mary, but her face was twisted in a final, silent scream. Her small hands were bloody and torn, and on the inside of the coffin lid, clear and deep, were the frantic, desperate scratch marks of a child who had woken in the dark, trapped, and fought with all her strength to escape. The official record is a sparse line in an old city ledger, a death from peritonitis. But the legend tells the fuller, more horrifying truth. She was not dead when they buried her. The medical coma of a severe infection was mistaken for death, and she was sealed away. The subsequent silence of the McNaughton family is deafening. They left Jackson years later, perhaps unable to ever escape the memory of that exhumation. Today, the secluded family plot is restricted, its access limited after past vandalism. But those who have walked the wooded footpaths near the graves after dusk speak of more than silence. They report the faint, heartbreaking sound of a child's cries. They listen for the ghostly scraping noise of small fingers against old wood. Visitors still sometimes leave small trinkets and bows at the gravesite, not just for the daughter of a prominent family, but for little Mary, the girl who met a fate worse than death, and whose spirit, they say, still scratches at the door of eternity. The lost copper of Isle Royale. On a remote island in the coldest, deepest Great Lake, there is a hole in the ground, then another and another, thousands of them. These are not natural formations. They are scars left by one of ancient North America's most ambitious projects. This is the mystery of the old copper culture on Isle Royale, and it begins with a simple, staggering fact. Over 500,000 tons of pure copper were pried from this rocky earth, and then it simply vanished. Long before Europeans conceived of crossing the Atlantic, people were coming to this wild island. They arrived not with iron picks, but with rounded hammerstones gathered from the lake shore. Their process was one of immense patience and force, heating the bedrock with fire, then hammering away to expose gleaming veins of nearly pure metal. The evidence is everywhere. An estimated 10,000 mining pits pockmark Isle Royale and Michigan's Keweenaw Peninsula, some tunneling 20 feet deep. This was not a casual gathering. This was an industry. And that is where the mystery deepens to a baffling silence. 500,000 tons is an almost incomprehensible amount of metal. If it was all used, we should be tripping over copper artifacts across the continent. Yet what archaeologists find is a ghost trail, a ceremonial spear point in an Ohio burial mound, a decorative ornament in the south. These are precious, but they are fragments, a few scattered pages from a library that has otherwise been erased. The sheer volume of missing copper is the core of the enigma. It did not just get used up, it disappeared. This void has spawned theories that stretch across oceans and into the realm of legend. Some propose that an unknown, advanced civilization, perhaps Phoenician traders or Minoan explorers, crossed the Atlantic to harvest this critical resource, taking every ounce back to the ancient world. Mainstream archaeology finds no shipwrecks, no foreign tools, no proof. The simpler explanation is a vast, continent-spanning trade network operated by indigenous peoples, dispersing the copper over millennia. But again, the math whispers that even this does not fully account for the scale. Perhaps the answer is not in ledgers, but in belief. For the Anishinaabe and other native peoples of the region, copper is not merely a metal. It is a sacred gift, the blood of the earth. Oral traditions describe it as a spiritual substance, to be used with reverence. This opens another possibility. What if much of that copper was never meant to be kept? What if it was extracted in ritual, shaped into sacred objects for ceremonies, and then intentionally returned to the land, buried in offerings or sunk in waterways? Archaeologists have discovered copper artifacts in burial mounds and underwater deposits throughout the Great Lakes, supporting this possibility. The copper wouldn't be missing to those who mined it. It would be exactly where it was meant to be. Then, around 1200 BCE, the hammering stopped. The mines fell silent. There was no invasion, no ecological collapse. The work just ended, as if a shared purpose had been fulfilled or a sacred injunction delivered. The people moved on, leaving the forest to slowly reclaim the pits. Today, Isle Royale is a place of profound quiet. You can stand at the edge of one of these ancient pits, now softened by moss and ferns, and feel the weight of the question hanging in the cold air. The copper is still in the ground in untouched veins, glinting in the sun, and the land itself holds the secret of what was taken, why it was taken, and where in the world it all possibly went. Mystery of Beat Grease. On a remote beach in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, the sand literally sings. At Beat Grease on Lake Superior's shore, slide your hand across the dry sand, and it produces a clear, high-pitched hum. The phenomenon is real, scientifically documented, and extraordinarily rare. But the legend that explains it is far older than the science. The science behind the sound is precise, yet no less magical for its explanation. The sand grains on this specific beach are uniquely shaped by the relentless action of the lake. They are not jagged, but remarkably spherical and uniform in size. When the humidity is just right, not too wet, not too dry, these perfect grains create a natural instrument. The friction from a hand or foot causes them to vibrate in unison, sliding against one another to produce that signature squeak or hum. Remove this sand from its home, and it falls forever silent. It needs its specific environment, the exact right alignment of grain, moisture, and density to perform its song. But long before geologists arrived with their measurements, a story was born to explain the music. It is a legend passed down through generations. It tells of a young Native American woman whose lover vanished into the storms of Lake Superior. Refusing to believe him lost, she returned to the shore day after day, singing out across the water in the desperate hope her voice would guide him home. Her vigil lasted a lifetime, her voice weaving into the very fabric of the place. According to the tale, she eventually withered into the dust of the beach itself, her spirit and her song forever embedded in the sand. The mournful, beautiful hum you hear today is said to be her eternal call, still echoing for a lover who never returned. This intertwining of clear science and enduring myth is what makes the site so captivating. You can know the exact millimeter size of the quartz grains and still feel the pull of the ancient story. The name Bête Grise itself means gray beast in French, a name borrowed from Native American descriptions of a mysterious creature once seen in the area, adding another layer of deep-time mystery to the location. Local Ojibwe oral history describes the gray beast as a large, mysterious creature, possibly a wolf or bear, that once roamed the Keweenaw Peninsula before vanishing. The beach presents a puzzle where both explanations, the physical and the spiritual, seem to coexist. The sand sings for a verifiable mechanical reason, and yet it sings only here, on this one isolated shore where such a poignant story took root. It is as if the land itself remembered the grief and found a way to echo it back through the very stones. So is it a perfect natural accident? Or is it something more? At Bête Grise, you are invited to decide. You can slide your palm over the dry, gray sand, trigger that unearthly note, and listen. Is it the simple vibration of polished rock? Or is it the faint, enduring echo of a voice from centuries past, still calling out across the endless water? The beach holds its secret, offering only its strange, beautiful song. The Paulding Light. Deep in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, down a remote forestry road near the tiny town of Paulding, nightfall brings a phenomenon that defies simple explanation. This is the Paulding Light, a silent, hovering mystery that has drawn the curious, the skeptical, and the hopeful for generations. The ritual is always the same. Visitors park on Robbins Pond Road, their headlights off, and stare into the dense black valley. They wait, and then it appears. A single bright point of light glows into existence in the distance. It's not a steady beacon, but a living thing. It pulses, changes color from white to amber to a fleeting red or green, and moves with an intelligence that car headlights do not possess. It dances, splits into multiple lights, and sometimes seems to rush toward the observers before vanishing. For decades, the only explanation was a ghost story. The legend is a tragedy etched into local lore. It tells of a railroad brakeman from the early days of the line that once ran through those woods. One fateful night, the story goes, he was checking the couplings between cars when a misstep sent him tumbling into the path of the wheels. He was killed instantly, his lantern dashed to the ground. The mysterious light is said to be his spirit, forever doomed to walk the tracks, swinging his lantern in a futile search for help, or perhaps as a warning to others. This haunting tale persisted unchallenged until 2010, when a group of determined students from Michigan Technological University arrived with a mission to solve the mystery once and for all. Armed with telescopes, spectrometers, and GPS units, they conducted a rigorous scientific study. Their conclusion was definitive. The Paulding Light was, they stated, nothing more than the headlights and taillights of distant vehicles traveling on a long, straight stretch of U.S. Highway 45 over 5 miles away through the jagged terrain. The atmospheric conditions and the lay of the land, they argued, magnified and distorted the ordinary lights into something that appeared supernatural. Case closed. A mystery solved by science. Except for those who have stood in that valley, it wasn't. The debunking failed to extinguish the belief. Witnesses who had seen the light rush toward them, who had watched it split and dance, found the highway explanation deeply unsatisfying. Cars do not behave that way. Headlights do not hover, change color independently, or approach an observer only to disappear moments later. The scientific answer explained a simple source of light, but it did not account for the complex, intelligent behavior hundreds of people swore they had seen. The valley, it seemed, was taking something ordinary and transforming it into something extraordinary. So what do you see in the Paulding Valley? Is it a spectacular natural trick of the eye? A rare confluence of geography, atmosphere, and distant human activity that creates a perfect illusion? Or is it something else? Perhaps the enduring power of a sad story, willing a light into being? Or just maybe it is the flickering lantern of a long-lost brakeman, still keeping his watch in the Michigan woods, ensuring that some mysteries refuse to be fully extinguished by the harsh light of fact. The legend of the sleeping bear. The shoreline of Lake Michigan holds a monument to one of the oldest and most sorrowful stories ever told. It is not a monument of stone, but of sand and water. This is the legend of the Sleeping Bear Dunes, an origin story written by the Anishinaabe people into the very landscape of Michigan. Long ago, in the great forests across the water, lived a mother bear, Mishemokwa, and her 2 cubs. Their world was one of quiet abundance until the day the wind changed. A monstrous forest fire, born on a distant wind, began its relentless march. It consumed everything in its path, turning the green woods into a roaring wall of orange and black. With the flames driving them, the bears and all the forest animals had only one escape: the vast, cold expanse of Lake Michigan. Knowing the burned land would offer no food, Mishemokwa led her cubs into the water. They were strong swimmers, their bodies sturdy from a life in the woods. Paddling steadily, she fixed her eyes on the distant eastern horizon, urging her little ones onward as the terrifying glow of the fire faded behind them. They swam through the day and into the deepening dark of night. The lake, vast and impersonal, stretched around them. Somewhere in that profound darkness, amidst the waves and the exhausting chill, the cubs fell behind. Their mother, fixed on the goal of survival, did not realize they were gone until the first light of dawn. Exhausted but determined, Misha Mokwa finally reached the Michigan shore the next day. She pulled herself onto the beach and turned, calling for her children. Only the crash of waves answered. In a growing panic, she climbed the tallest dune, a towering slope of pure, pale sand. From that high perch, she scanned the endless blue water. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of blood and gold, she saw them. Two small dark shapes were struggling far out in the lake. Her heart surged, then shattered. She watched, helpless, as first one cub and then the other faltered and disappeared beneath the cold, unforgiving waves. A grief greater than any fire consumed her. Misha Mokwa did not leave her perch. She lay down upon the high dune, her eyes forever fixed on the two spots where her children had vanished. She refused to eat, to drink, or to sleep. She simply watched, her sorrow as deep as the lake itself. The Great Spirit, Gitche Manitou, witnessed her profound devotion and unbearable sadness. Moved by her love in the cubs' brave journey, the spirit acted. From the very place where the cubs disappeared, two islands rose from the depths of Lake Michigan, North Manitou and South Manitou. They stand there to this day, eternal markers of the cubs' courage. But for Misha Mokwa, there could be no comfort. Knowing her heart would never heal and her vigil would never end, Gitche Manitou performed one final act of mercy. A deep, peaceful slumber was laid upon the grieving mother. As she slept, the winds themselves gently drew the sands of the dune over her like a soft, final blanket. Today, the massive, sleeping shape of the mother bear is still there. It is the great dune that bears her name. And across the water, her two cubs rest forever as islands. It is a story of love, loss, and remembrance, carved not in stone, but in the very soul of the Michigan coast.